Hi, everyone. I want to welcome you to our Learning Everywhere Rethinking Homework webinar. I'm Teddy Fullenwider with ReadyRosie, and I'm happy that you are tuning in to hear about learning everywhere. I want you to take a look at these little emojis that I have on this screen, and I want you to think back to when you were in school doing homework. Which emoji would you choose to best represent how you felt about homework? And it can either be as a child when you were doing homework growing up, or you can think about an emoji that represents how you feel as an adult having to help your child now. I'm going to give you a second to choose one. Some of you all may have picked the smiley face or the little heart eyes. But my guess is that many of you picked an angry, sad, or maybe a frustrated face. And I'm sure if we're honest with each other, you probably wish I had some of the other emojis on the screen for you to choose that better represents how you feel about homework. So we have to ask ourselves, if none of us or the majority of us didn't pick the hallelujah, glory, we love homework emoji, then why are we still doing homework, or why are we still having a negative response or reaction to homework? Typically, homework is sent home either in a daily or weekly folder or as a packet for the week. Most of us include some kind of reading log. And for a lot of us, our homework practice reflects our personal experience with homework. So in other words, growing up, if we had a homework packet, we typically send home a homework packet. And the opinions of homework are as diverse as the types of homework being sent home. There's some of us out there that think homework is the end all and be all for everything. And there's some of us out there that think homework is kind of a four-letter word. So I want you to think for just a second, what are some of those challenges when we do give homework? What are some of those things that we think, why did we assign homework? Do you think of a couple? Here are some common ones that I know I've experienced, and I've had friends share these challenges with them. Students don't do it. The students don't have the resources at home to do the homework. It takes forever to grade. I have friends in first and second grade who teach first and second grade. They're not in first or second grade, but they spend their whole weekend grading homework. Another challenge is students don't always understand the language that the homework is in. And my favorite is that sometimes parents do the homework. So if we acknowledge that there are challenges, and yet we still continue to assign homework, let's think about maybe why we give homework, and let's look at it in terms of the parent, why the parent wants homework, and why we as educators give homework. For parents, it was part of their school day. They think it helps them know what their child is doing in school. It provides expectations for the parent role in supporting their child. And sometimes they think it's an opportunity to observe their child's learning process. So that's why parents a lot of times ask for homework. For us, it was part of our school experience. Parents want to know what their child is doing, so what better way than to send homework home? It provides expectations for the parent's role in supporting the child. And it's an opportunity, we think, for the parent to observe their child's learning process or progress. So basically, really, most parents ask for homework because that's what they know, and we assign homework because that's what we know. So you might not find this interesting, but I personally find it fascinating when we go back and look at the history of homework. In the last 100 years, homework has really reflected our societal norms. At the end of the 19th century, the time in school, students spent reciting their knowledge, what they had learned. Well, in order to recite that knowledge, they had to spend upwards of 2 to 3 hours of drill and memorization. Now, if you think back to that time in our history, kids were helping on the family farm. They were working out in the fields. They were milking the cows. They were gathering the eggs. And so if they had jobs to do on the farm, they didn't have 2 to 3 hours to work on drill and memorization. So a lot of parents started keeping their kids home from school because they couldn't keep up with the homework. Then, in the early 20th century, the field of pediatrics was growing. It was becoming a thing. And as you can imagine from pediatricians, they started advocating that young children needed fresh air, sunshine, they needed to run around, they needed to be playing outside. And clearly, if they're doing hours of homework, that's going to interfere. Interestingly, the Ladies' Home Journal started publishing a series of anti-homework articles. In 1930, the Society for the Abolition of Homework was organized. So all the way back in the 1930s, there was a society abolishing homework. Many school districts, or whatever the term was that they used at that time for districts, voted against giving homework. And if the whole district or area didn't vote to not give homework, they did decide not to do homework for children in what we would consider now K through 6th grade. So in the 30s and 40s, most school districts, or however they designated that school area, did not give homework. Now let's skip ahead to 1957, and the Russians launched Sputnik. Well, this was part of the U.S.'s obsession with competing with the Russians. And so the U.S. was afraid that children weren't being prepared to compete in the future in the world of technology. Teachers, school officials, parents saw homework as the only means to accelerate their learning of knowledge. And so they saw this lack of homework as a national problem. And if we didn't start doing more homework, how were we ever going to be able to compete against the Russians when it came to technology? So the pendulum swung back in favor of homework. Well, then in the 60s and 70s, we had the Vietnam War. And during that time, a whole counterculture emerged that was really anti-establishment, anti pretty much everything. And people at that time felt that homework was putting too much pressure on children. They needed to be free to play, kind of like the pediatric society back earlier. What was interesting, though, at this time was there actually was some research emerging about the benefits of homework, but mass media pretty much ignored it. And so that counterculture of anti-homework was really more prevalent. Then in the 1980s, 83 specifically, was the Study of a Nation at Risk that came out. And this was the first major report by the government trying to prove the inadequacies of our school, linking the mediocrity of our schools to the trouble in the U.S. economy. And so clearly, if we have mediocrity in our schools, we're going to not have very intelligent people. That's going to affect our economy. And so a whole movement started called the intensification movement. It was the idea that education can be improved only if there's more of it in the form of longer school years, more testing, and clearly more homework. So now the pendulum has swung back to we really need more homework. Now, from the late 98 into really still current, there's been research on anti-homework, and also, though, a lot of research on the benefits of homework. And everyone is paying attention to that research now. But what I find interesting when we look back of that history of homework is that a lot of the decisions have not been based on what works best for children in learning, best practices. It's been based on societal norms. So what does the research say about homework now that people are paying attention to it? Well, what they have found is that homework, to be beneficial, and yes, homework can be beneficial, it needs to have 5 specific characteristics. And so as we go through these 5 characteristics, I want you to think about the homework that you assign, that you send home, and how many, hopefully all, of these characteristics do you meet. And if there's one that you think, oh, shoot, my homework really doesn't meet that characteristic, what can you do to tweak it so that it does have all 5 of these characteristics so that you're getting the most out of your homework? So what we know from the research is that best homework tasks have 5 characteristics. The first one is academic purpose. And that word purpose, I think, kind of transcends or should transcend everything that we do in education. What is our purpose? And so we want to say things to children like, the reason you're taking this home today, or the reason for today's homework is, I want you to think about what we learned today. I want to see if you clearly understand it. I want to allow you to analyze something that you learned today. This homework is going to help you reflect on what you learned. One of the best homework, I think, for primary children when they get into spelling is if you're doing spelling sorts in the classroom, and as a class you've come up with that generalization for that spelling pattern. Then the children take a set of words home and they try to see if the parent can figure out how they sorted the words, the generalization that dictated that sorting pattern. Now the kids are taking what they've learned at school, and the purpose of that assignment is to see, can they teach their family what it was that they learned with regards to that spelling pattern. The second characteristic is our homework has to be efficient. Nobody has time to be wasting their time. Children don't, adults don't, we don't, our families don't, nobody does. And so we want to help our students reach the standards, but without wasting their time. A lot of the research shows that 10-minute per grade level is a good guide, and I want to stress the word guide. It's not an absolute, but basically the belief is that first graders should spend about 10 minutes, second graders 20 minutes, third graders 30 minutes on up. We also want to make sure that our homework is efficient in that we allow for children to practice over time, practice a skill over time. So you'll notice in that middle picture, the mom and her little girl are actually waiting in the doctor's office, and they're playing Word Man. And they're using words and spelling patterns, high frequency words and spelling patterns that they've had all year long. And so it's not just a spelling assignment for this week that we're talking about these particular words or this particular spelling pattern or this particular math concept, but it's a distributive thing so that they're practicing those skills over time. With our homework being efficient, we also want to make sure that it's differentiated. And so what might take one child 10 minutes to do an activity might take another child 20 minutes, might take a child only 5 minutes. And so we need to know how long an assignment might be. And so if you send something home, and we'll say this in a couple more slides, but you want to say this activity should only take 5 minutes, and stop after your child has spent 5 minutes on the activity. That tells you, okay, they only got 2 problems worked in 5 minutes out of 10 or out of 7. So I need to work on their math fluency. They still need some practice on that particular concept. When the parents don't have an idea of how much time an activity should take, you then don't have an idea if it took that child 5 minutes or 30 minutes. The next characteristic that we want to make sure is in our homework is that it allows for ownership. And this doesn't mean ownership like whether I want to do the homework or not, but we want to make sure that our homework has choices that are meaningful to the student. This ownership could be as easy as pick 7 of these 10 math problems to work. That could be the ownership. It could be, I want you to read 3 of the 5 nights. I mean, if our purpose is for children to practice their reading at home for fluency, do we care really if they read Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or if they read Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or if they read Friday, Saturday, Sunday, if we want them to read 3 nights of the week? And so let them have some ownership in that. We also want to give them, as they get, particularly in 2nd and 3rd grade, give choice as to how they represent their learning. If they finish a book, everyone might not think it's a lot of fun to make a diorama. My children personally did not enjoy making dioramas. We tried to figure out ways to cut corners on making dioramas. Could we save them from year to year? I'm not proud of that, but that was not a happy assignment in our household with our children growing up. One of our kids would have loved to have been able to create a news show talking about the book that she had just read. And so if our purpose, again, is to find out, did they understand the book that they read? Do we care how they represent that learning? So again, giving them some ownership. And when we give kids ownership, it builds their self-regulation because they are in control. The 4th characteristic that we want to be aware of is that it builds competence. Always want to make sure that they have an opportunity to start their homework in class so that you, the educator, can make sure they understand what it is we're about to send them off to do at home. It is not the role of the parent to teach their child a skill. So we want to make sure that it's doable and that the child sees that it's doable, not only in the amount of time, but also the content. When they see assignments as doable, it really supports their identity as learners and does a lot for their self-esteem. We also want to make sure in building that competence that they have what they need to be successful at home. Do they have paper and pencil at home? I don't want to take for granted that my students don't have a pencil. Heavens, there are days when I can't find a pencil at my house. And so are we asking them to do things at home that require things that they don't readily have? And then the last characteristic that we want to make sure is part of our homework is that it's aesthetically pleasing. Does it make it look like they want to do it? Is it clear? Is it readable? The way homework looks is important. To be honest, a 5 or 7 or 10 page worksheet packet, homework packet, or endless lists of word definitions or math problems looks tedious, is overwhelming for a lot of children, for a lot of families. A lot of teachers have learned that students of all levels are more motivated to complete an assignment when it's visually uncluttered. So basically, less on the page. And especially for our primary kids, our little bitties who some may still be struggling with fine motor skills, we want to make sure that if we're asking them to write, that we allow enough space for those little fine motor muscles to write. I know as an adult, it's frustrating to me when I'm having to fill out a form and I have a little half-inch space that I'm supposed to write my answer in. And I have pretty good fine motor skills. So again, think about, do they have enough space to write, to answer what it is that I'm asking them to do? And always, clip art goes a long way for making a homework assignment look interesting and exciting. So now that we know the 5 characteristics, and hopefully your homework that you're sending home has at least 3 of these, and maybe you're going to tackle making sure about the other 2 characteristics that you've included them in your homework. But so once we know that our homework has all these 5 characteristics, there really are some benefits, not only for the students, but there are benefits for the families, And then there are benefits for us as well. And I think that when families are more involved, our communication with them is a lot better. And if you've differentiated, then the parent knows, oh goodness, she said this should only take 5 minutes. It took my child 3 hours. What does that tell me about my child and this particular skill? So what is the role of the parent in homework? It's different from ours. And not to go into too much detail, but that role is going to change as their child grows. So we're just going to hopefully watch 2 quick little ReadyRosie or parts of 2 ReadyRosie videos so that we can talk about how that role might change. So this first one is part of our ReadyRosie baby.
You want to help me make eggs? So we're going to take 1. Can you say 1? 1. And you're going to break it. Uh-oh. And then 2. You say 2? 2. Good job. I like how you said 2. And you want to hand her the whisk, and we're going to stir it all up. Stir, stir. You have to make sure they're all gone. All the circles are gone. Good. Okay, now let's add some.
Whoops, sorry about that. Let me go back here. But basically, you got the idea that they're just building really oral language. And so particularly when they're really small, their role is to model healthy relationships by talking and singing and playing, providing a safe environment for their kids. You notice that she wasn't, cracking the eggs by herself. It's opportunities to do things with an older sibling and the younger sibling if there's time or the activity lends itself to them. So now let's look at this one. This is a 3rd grade example, and this is called Double the Recipe.
Boys, I have everything ready here to get our dinner prepared for tonight. Now remember, we're having nita abuelo for dinner tonight. So with this recipe, instead of doing the usual thing that we usually do, we're going to double it. Okay? So you're going to help me do that. The first thing that it asks for is 1 cup of the rice. But we're doubling it, so how many do we need, Sam?
2.
2 cups. We're going to be ready. Good job, babe. And let's do 1 cup. And we're doubling it, so how many are we doing?
2.
Do another one. Keep going. There you go. So careful about measuring. Thank you. That helps to make the recipe just perfect. Now, the next one asks for, look at this one, Robbie.
Okay. 1.5 cups of water.
1.5 cups of water. Now this time we're doubling 1.5. Okay, let's start with the 1 part. We have 1.5 cups. So if we have 1 cup and we're doubling it, how much? What does that equal? 2 cups. Sam, go ahead and leave your fingers up like that. Let's remember that number. Okay, then we've got the 1/2 cup too that we need to double. So if I double this 1/2 cup, what is that going to turn into?
Full.
A full what?
A full cup.
A full cup,
So that
which
would be
equals, how many did we have before, Sammy? 2 plus 1 more full cup.
3 cups.
So 1.5 doubled equals how many?
3 cups.
3 full cups. That was a little tricky, but we figured it out. These measuring cups helped us to figure that out.
Okay, so you can see just from those 2 quick examples that the role of the parent is a little different from when they're a toddler and when their child might be in 3rd grade. The content is a little bit harder. And that you might have some families, well, in every family, but it's going to be at different times. There's going to come a point in their child's learning where what the child is learning could very easily surpass the knowledge level of the child. And I know in my family, personally, with my children, I am not a math person. And so when they got into much higher math, it was at a level that I didn't understand and I couldn't help them. And truth be known, I didn't really want to help them. And so my role as the parent then was to find resources so that they could get the help that they needed. So we want to make sure that we understand those two roles, the role of the parent or the caregiver, and then our role as the educator, which is different than that of the parent. Our role is to make sure that our families, like I said, understand how much time an activity should take. So that way they know if they're spending 30 minutes on something that really should only take 10 minutes, they need to know that, and they need to let you know that it's taking their child a lot longer to do an activity. Again, as I said, we want to make sure that they have all the materials at home that they need, or make sure that we are doing assignments that don't require any activities. I know a lot of kindergarten programs want children to cut out pictures that begin with the focus sound for the week or whatever. Well, that's great, unless I don't have magazines at home and I don't have a source for pictures. That's not a common thing nowadays that families have lying around the house. Also, if I only subscribe to health and fitness magazines, then my choice of pictures are limited. So we need to be thinking about what materials a child is going to need in order to do the homework that they're asking them to do. We also want to make sure that we do some interest surveys or ask at parent-teacher conference. At ReadyRosie.com, under our resources, we have in our parent-teacher conference tools a great family questionnaire that gives you an insight into your students. But we want to ask them, how does your child work best? Is there a better day? All children might not be involved in dance or different sports, but we have a lot of families where they don't live in close proximity to the school. And by the time the parent gets off work and picks their child up and gets home, it's time for dinner, it's time for baths, and it's time for bed. And it's not that they don't want to support their child at home and do homework or do a fun activity. They don't have time. Or they're robbing their child of well-needed sleep in order to get the homework done. And so if you do an activity or a survey, then you can find out, oh, okay, no, we don't have time during the week because I don't get home in time, but I am more than happy to do that activity on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. So find out about your families. And then, of course, you always want to offer opportunities for parents to learn more about how they can be not only supportive of their children, but what they're already doing that is supporting their child. And as you all know, ReadyRosie has 6 wonderful workshops that are available to you, and several Give Me 10s in our resources that you can utilize for that purpose. So what if we thought of homework really just as learning beyond the school walls? What if we thought of homework a little differently? We reframed it and took the word work out of it, which kind of conjures up negative feelings, and thought of it now as home learning, because that's really what they're doing. They're learning at home, outside of the school. ReadyRosie really truly believes that learning occurs everywhere. And you all know that. And we believe in home learning. Families are already doing it. They just don't realize it. When they're at the grocery store talking about, oh, look at this yellow banana, look at this red, oh goodness, there are red apples and there are green apples. They're supporting colors. They're supporting language with naming the fruit. The learning is authentic because the child is practicing a skill in an authentic way. Following a recipe, weighing fruit, finding letters on a billboard while you're driving in the car, talking about a book when you're going in the car, learning at the park. Because if we want to be honest with each other, how many times as an adult have you had to sit down and take a test and spell 20 words correctly? That's not an authentic situation. That's not an authentic environment. Now, what I have to do as an adult, I have to spell those words correctly when I write a letter or when I write an email or when I write whatever. And so let's capitalize on those authentic learning situations that are already going on. And what we hear from a lot of our families is that when they do these activities at the grocery store, at the laundromat, on the bus, wherever, their children are more engaged and they're actually behaving better. To help you do that, provide those authentic activities to support what you're teaching, is on ReadyRosie.com under resources / alignments and curriculum maps. We have alignments by grade level. So you can click on pre-K, first grade, second grade, kindergarten, third grade for curriculum maps that look like this. This is an example of the first grade one. And so under phonological awareness, the standard is families help connect spoken word syllables and sounds by playing with words, et cetera, et cetera. And then it lists the actual ReadyRosie videos that align to that standard. So that's one way that you can look to see which videos, which of our modeled moments align. But you can also do it by standards. And so again, that same resources / alignments and curriculum maps, if you click on standards alignment, you can either, if you're sorting for elementary or if you're sorting by pre-K, you can choose your state. And then once you get to your state, your grade level. And so I just pulled up the Texas standards, the text, and this is kindergarten. The student expectation is emergent literacy, reading domain. The grade level expectation is an alphabet knowledge skill. The indicator is that child names the first letter of his or her name. And then we list the videos that specifically will support that particular standard. So those are two ways that you can find the standards that you're teaching. Once you have that, or if you have them all memorized, you have the ability to create a customized playlist. So yes, your families are getting the playlist from ReadyRosie, but how wonderful that now they can get this quote unquote homework tool, home learning playlist that's been customized for exactly what you're teaching in class. So, so maybe the title, if you go to playlist and then add playlist, my title is Word Fun. And my little message that I want to send out to my families this week says, we've learned so many words this year. Here are a few games that will keep those spelling patterns and high frequency words fresh in your child's brain. Remember to click the We Did It button and leave a comment. Have fun. And then I added the video Fishing for Words and the video Word Man. Those are the two videos that I want my families to watch this week that's going to directly support what we're talking about in class. Once you have that customized playlist, I don't know if all of you all are familiar that you now can see a playlist report. It would have been nice if I had done a pretend playlist report too that supported the customized playlist that I made, but I didn't. This is an actual playlist report from one of our partner teachers. And so you can see, I've cut off the children's names, but you can see that one particular child watched the specific video that she had assigned on January 14th at 8:09, and then that parent left a comment about watching the little girl sort or count the fruit. And so this shows that 3 children had already watched the video, liked it, and left a comment. And so you have access to that when you customize a playlist. Here are just a few ways that our some of our ReadyRosie partners are using our modeled moments, our videos, as a home learning tool. They'll introduce key home learning concepts by introducing the activity in the classroom during a center or as a lesson closure or at transitional times. And so the children are seeing the activity before they even go home. Some of them are having their families and students complete a home learning reflection on an activity and return it. I know some of our partners have said that children will take a picture or on their phone and text it to the teacher. Some of them will draw a little picture, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. The majority of our teachers who are using our ReadyRosie as a homework tool are using that comment feature on the dashboard. So they're showing their families on the video, as they watch the video, that space where they can leave a comment, and then you can have that two-way conversation. Some of them are giving children credit for watching an activity at home, watching a video. Maybe if they're not in a grade where they're giving grades, they'll say, okay, if you watch this activity and click the we did it and you've done the activity, then you'll get 10 minutes of credit for doing something at home to support your child. Our library has hundreds of modeled moments to support what you're doing in the classroom. And these are just a few that we've heard from actual partners. And I know that you can think of a lot of other ways to use ReadyRosie as a home learning tool. And when you do, we want to hear from you. We want to be able to share with everybody how you're using ReadyRosie. And so just to show that the parents really love this approach to homework, here are some comments from some of our actual families. These are actual quotes from them. I just took the names of the children off. So-and-so loves doing the alphabet clapping song. We can absolutely try this one. Now, I ask you, how many times when you've sent home a math worksheet has a parent commented and said, well, we can absolutely do this worksheet? Probably not. I love the one that said, I personally enjoyed this exercise because I realized how much so-and-so actually knows about snakes, and we were able to talk and look up different facts about snakes. How exciting that an activity that you had them do led to another family activity that they did. And here are a couple more. The ones that I really think are cool that I chose was the one that said up at the top that said, we tried doing this one, but so-and-so wants nothing to do with letters or her name. I don't know about you, but when I was in the classroom, I didn't get comments back from parents like that when I asked them to glue pictures on cut out pictures out of a magazine and glue them on a piece of paper for a beginning sound. I didn't get that. I either didn't get it back or I got, one or two pictures. She doesn't want anything to do with this. I also love the one that says, struggled with this, but we will practice. Again, typically our usual way of sending homework home has not allowed for this kind of communication. Parents don't feel comfortable saying, oh, she really struggled with this worksheet. But with our comment feature, these are legitimate, actual comments from families. And on a personal note, I had the opportunity to spend a couple days with our two of our grandchildren this past week. And so this is Zoe, our little second grade granddaughter. She lives in El Paso, and we were killing time one afternoon, and I just said, hey, let's play some ReadyRosie card games. And so the first one we played most of them, but the two that she loved, one was 15 fact memory, and it's just memory. You play the same way as you play memory, but the two cards that you turn over have to add up to 15. And so it's a fun way to practice those facts, those math facts, 15, how all the different ways that you can make up 15. And the second one that we played was really interesting because it was subtraction switch. And so they're subtracting one, they try to make the largest number and then subtract the third card that they've been dealt. And so not only is it working on subtraction, but it's also supposed to be working on mental math. And you'll notice little Zoe has a piece of paper and a pencil over there because while she's learning subtraction, she's pretty good at subtraction, her mental math is not as strong. And so she said, I'm going to grab a piece of paper. And I said, that's fine. And so, but what I loved was after an afternoon of playing, she said to me, unsolicited, she said, "This was way more fun than my regular homework." And so to me, that sums up what we're trying to do by rethinking homework in a new way. And we feel ReadyRosie's modeled moments provide those 5 characteristics that are so beneficial to homework. So what if you used ReadyRosie for your home learning? Now, I'm sure there's some, I know that there's some rock stars out there that will this weekend say, okay, yes, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do it for language and literacy and math and social and emotional and health and well-being and the whole thing. And yay for you. And if you do, send us what you do. Send us a copy of your playlist. Let us know so we can celebrate you. But I also know reality sets in and it can be overwhelming. So pick one. Maybe the easiest place to start is math and reasoning. Maybe the easiest homework to replace is your math homework. And so start there. Create a customized playlist to replace your math homework that you're doing. And then when you feel comfortable with that and your parents are on board with that, tackle another area so that by the end of the year or next fall, all of your homework is replaced with ReadyRosie activities. I think your parents will love it, and I think you will love it as well. Before we close, I want to encourage you that if you have questions, if you need help or support, to please reach out and email us at support@readyrosie.com. I also want to give you my email, teddy@readyrosie.com. So if you are if you do a customized playlist and you start using ReadyRosie as your homework replacement tool, send me your success stories. Send me your frustrations. Send me your failures so that we can work through this together and celebrate your the things that are going well and work on the things that you want us to improve on as we continue on this journey of rethinking homework. And don't forget to connect with us on Facebook and Twitter. We are constantly sharing ideas that our partners are using. And if you share with me, who knows, you might see it on Facebook. We seriously are excited to hear how you are using homework as your homework replacement tool. So do reach out. Enjoy the rest of your day or evening or weekend whenever you are watching this webinar, and let us hear from you.